All right, it's 7 o'clock. We're going to start with Pledge of Allegiance. Open this meeting.
So what do we call it?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we have an oath. Remind me how this works. We have to read this oath.
Yes.
I'm not going to find the oath.
Not a confidence builder.
It's on the back side. Okay.
I state your name.
Okay. Want me to read it?
Yep.
All right. The undersigned members of the Board of Equalization for the County of Olmsted and the State of Minnesota do each for ourselves solemnly swear that we will faithfully and impartially equalize the values of the real estate for the year 2022 returned by the assessor in accordance with laws of the State of Minnesota to provide for the assessment of taxes. So help us God. So are we supposed to?
What we do. I do.
You.
I do.
I will.
Perfect. Thank you.
Not the smoothest.
We could do it again.
That's okay.
All right.
All right. Julie Ackman, Associate Director of Olmsted County Property Records and Licensing. We're here for the Local Board of Appeal and Equalization, or the County Board of Appeal and Equalization. I have a few slides at the beginning that we usually go over. You also had them in the packet. So do you want to go through each of the slides, or do we want to just get on to, Jenny, does anybody have any questions on the slides that we sent, or do you want to go through them individually?
I think we should go through some of the slides.
Okay.
Very beneficial.
So the first slide here is the summary of our assessment. It just shows that our values are within compliance. Residential, we're at 91%. We had 2,671 qualified sales. Our commercial, you can see the median ratio is at 97%, apartment 92, and agricultural properties at 92.61%. Our agricultural properties, we increased anywhere from 22 to 30%, depending on what
Could you
types of
speak
property.
just a little slower? I think some people will listen to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Our agricultural properties went up between 22 and 30%, depending on what the land types were. Our tillable values, just in general, based on the sales that we had, increased a minimum of 22%. Apartments, depending on the unit mix of them, our apartment values went up anywhere from 15 to 30%. Some of our mid-grade, the mid-size 12 to 23 units are the ones that went up the most. Residentially, you'll see a slide later in the presentation. Our residential values went up on average 20%, and later in the packet you'll see the same type of percentage throughout this part of the state. We did an analysis on it and just took a look at some of the counties that surround us to see where those increases are as well. So we're well within that range. Next slide. This is a valuation summary. If you look at it, it makes a breakdown of the taxing districts throughout Olmsted County. It gives the market value from this year as well as last year, as well as new construction. So you'll see the percent change. Including the city of Rochester, the total growth is a little over 2%. Outside, excluding city of Rochester, we're at 1.63%. This particular slide is one that we keep track of on an annual basis. This is preliminary values in the spring of 2022. You'll see our new construction amounts on taxable properties went up to $435 million this year, which is, again, higher than we've had in the past. We dipped in 2021, and then we came back up in 2022. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see that with the individual new construction. Estimated market values, again, this is for taxable value. We're up to a little over $25 billion in the county in total value. If you include the exempt properties in there, we're a little over $28 billion. So that, again, we're growing. The next couple of slides, this is the agricultural sales that we used as a basis for our values. So these are all the sales that came in between October 1st of 2020 and September 30th of 2021. that helped us create values for our 22 assessment. The next couple of slides is the summaries. We take 160-acre farms historically through the county, and we have been tracking as to what the value and taxes have done. You'll notice that not every township is in here. We're just trying to do a representative sampling. It's getting harder and harder to find 160-acre tracts of land as one parcel so that we can track that. If one happens to sell or split, then we try to track down another one so that we can do the historical values and taxes on that as well.
So on that, is the tax, the county portion tax or total tax?
That is the total tax. Yep,
Okay.
total tax of the parcel.
I know Kalmar's very high.
Yeah. And that could very well have to do with the Byron School District. The Byron School District. Yeah.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yep.
Is Calmer the highest? Generally?
I doubt it.
The highest taxing
pretty high.
district.
Per acre, you're talking.
Yeah.
Per acre.
Not a per acre value. The highest per acre value we have in the county.
Is it which?
Greg, probably.
Rockdale. Farmington.
Yeah.
Rockdale and Farmington.
But their tax, per acre tax is probably higher in Kalmar than Farmington, depending on
Depends
what part.
because of the school district.
The school district, yeah.
Yep.
And we got the radio towers out there, and we got the landfill. Yeah, we got everything in Calmer. We love it. Proud to do our part.
And then at the bottom of this page, there's just the 100% CER. So that's our 100% soil value. There's about 200 acres in the county. So all of our values are taken. So soils have ratings to them. And so the 100% soil rating this year is 99.50. So as an example, if a soil rating was 70, it'd be 70% of that value would be that per acre value.
So that's gone up last 20 years, almost 400%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And the next probably year or two, we'll have to move over to CPIs, which is a different way of doing the ratings.
Sure.
So we'll see some changes in that, but we're not sure how that's going to change as of yet until we get working on that project. Yep. And then this is just the overall with our Region 1 surrounding counties, just where we compare to those, and that's comparable to our 100% rating. So if you look at Dodge County, they probably, you know, to the west, they're at 9,800, we're at 9,950. I think this is the first time that I've known that we've been over Dodge County. Mower County is still higher and still is the highest in our region at 10,300 for their 100%.
But you're getting a lot of that is not even ag anymore. I mean, you get people, they buy 160, you know, they figure if they buy 160 and they put up an expensive house, they can rent the land. It's a big lot for them.
They're also getting, I think, a lot of out-of-state investors too.
It's not
Yeah.
strictly ag.
Yeah. Being used as ag, but maybe not by ag owners.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still being rented, so it's considered ag. It's considered ag land. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. This is the chart that I was talking about earlier. So we just around the state put together a map of the state, or this portion of the state, just to show our counterparts as to what their residential value is. So this is strictly residential, and just this is the average residential increase that they saw in their counties. So as you see, we sat around 20%, pretty consistent with the rest of the state. There are some. Mower County went up 29, Fillmore County was 30. Some a little bit lower, but the consistency is pretty well even throughout the state, this portion of the state.
That's just single family homes, residential.
Correct. Yep. You might find some duplexes in there, but single family.
Sure.
Yeah. And then the further you go north, I think some of the lake counties, they didn't enter those in just because those were considerably higher in the
Sure.
percentages that they had. Yep. Next slide. And this is our first taxpayer.
Okay.
I'll let Mr.
So-
Maddox speak first.
Pardon me?
I'll let Mr. Maddox speak first.
Sure, why don't we do that?
Okay.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I've been in this home since 2004.
You gotta say your name and just
Oh,
for the
I'm
record.
sorry.
Yeah.
My name is Daniel Maddox.
Give your address, please.
Is 1220 Lone Pine Drive Southwest.
Okay, thank you.
And I have been there since 2004. And when I got the latest estimate, I thought I should look back. And the tax records that I have going back to 2004 demonstrated the average annual change in taxable value was 1.449%. So this year, the tax is going up 20%. And I thought that it was reasonable to raise the issue because I think what we've seen in the appreciation of residential home values this year and last year represents a big bubble that's been driven a lot by just residential, because that's really the segment of real estate that has undergone the big expansion, and it's coming to an end already as the Fed raises interest rates. And it just feels to me as though my home had a fairly stable and gradually appreciating value, and now there's suddenly a bubble that jacks the taxable value way up into the stratosphere, but it's going to collapse in another 6 to 12 months because the rates are going to cool all of those mortgage applications. And I just think it doesn't strike me as the good feeling I get from living in Minnesota that this isolated spike in values for several rather transient reasons is going to be capitalized on by my government for such a tax windfall. I mean, I think that level of change year over year is unprecedented. Well, at least in the last 18 years, it's unprecedented in my records. And I thought that it was reasonable to raise the possibility of the county being a little less aggressive in exploiting this bubble for more stability in the future.
No.
So do you dispute that your home is worth what the assessor says it's worth?
Well, the home immediately to the left of mine just sold this past week for significantly less than what I've been assessed.
Okay.
Let me just comment on a couple things you're saying. I don't doubt that you're probably correct. I think we're in a bubble thing. However, that the way the law works in the state of Minnesota is we're lagging. I mean, we're always behind because I own a farm and the farm's gone up and it's gone down, and we're in a going up stage and we're going to be going in a going down stage. So if that's true, if we do have a bubble, and I don't think that's unreasonable, that it's going to start collapsing with the interest rates. What goes up, if your value is here at the 441, they'll come out and assess it again. If it goes down, if everything goes in the tank and it's only worth 250 next year, it'll go down that too. It can go down, but that's not the way the law works in Minnesota. We got to look at comparable sales in the current year, the last 6 months or year or something like that. So we have to, even though I agree with you, I mean, that's not the way the law is. So we have to look at what would you sell it for today, or what they think the value is today with interest rates still kind of low. I don't disagree with you, but that's not the way the law works. So,
Okay.
but if you say the house next to you got sold, I'd probably want to hear from our staff what the comps look like on, why they think this is worth more than your neighbors that just sold. So.
Well, I didn't want to argue a whole lot of fine numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the principle of the thing that made me interested in raising the possibility that.
I'll give you another example. I mean, I've been on a DMC, well, Mark's on it now. I was on it since its inception. And these developers are coming out of town, mostly out of town. A lot of them, I mean, from all over the United States, and they're buying up properties downtown. And the people that have businesses downtown that have been there have really no intent to sell. they're seeing their valuations go up a lot more than 20%. And I mean, it's not fair. I mean, that they're getting nicked like that. But the laws in the state of Minnesota say you got to be assessed what a comparable sale is, in your area. And with this DMC, we're seeing huge increases downtown on the businesses. Even some guy, they don't want to sell their coffee shop. I mean, they got a nice little thing going, but that land, if they did sell it, it would go for big money. And so they need to be assessed at that. And I mean, I can sympathize with them, but I got to also follow the law. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
the opportunity.
So is this a board action? We need to make a decision on this. Julie, want to come up?
Yeah.
I just want to clarify one thing. Jim's right, and we did look at the sales, but the sales study that we're looking at right now is from October 1st of 2020 to September 30th of 2021. So if you go to the next slide, there's 3 sales that we pulled. That one, Hosea talked to Mr. Maddox that he had pulled those sales. So these 3 sales happened in that near vicinity during that sales period. That show the values are still in that area. We have his value at 441 even. There are a couple of sales that sold after this sales period, and he indicated the one next door sold just last week or in the just near future, or just happened. Those we'll actually look for in the new sales study. So the sales study that happened October 1st, 21 to September 30th of 22. We'll use those sales for our 23 assessment. So that upcoming assessment is the sales that we'll be looking at. If you go to the next slide, Ryan. These are the sales that happened in the new sales study that we found. So if we were to look, once that's registered in our office, we'll be able to find the one that's next door to his house as well. So we will be watching those. But at this point in time, yes, our request is that we affirm the value of 441 that we have on his property. Unless you have any questions for me.
I have no questions. Anybody? Okay, well, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion. We leave it 441.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Okay.
Our second taxpayer on the list, I think, is in your packet, and is Robert Sanchez Galbranson. He had signed up. His name was still on the list, but we had talked to him. Hosea had talked to him, and I think alleviated his concerns. I've talked to him on the phone, and Mark Krupski talked to him on the phone. So he was happy with the results after those conversations, but he just didn't remove himself from the list.
Okay.
So I would just ask that we affirm our value. We actually did bring the value down a little bit during our conversations. We started at 471.8, and we brought the value down to 453.5. So I just would like the board to affirm that new value.
All right, we need a motion.
Move to approve the change in value.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
All right.
And then,
So, next up, Pat Shields. Hello.
Good evening.
Hey,
Thank you, everyone, for giving up your time to be
pull the
here.
microphone down just a little bit, please.
You
You
can,
can just
I
bend
have
her
2
down.
microphones. Well,
so just give your name and address to start.
my
Patricia.
name is Patricia Shields.
Yep.
I live at 540 South Minnesota Avenue in Orinoco.
Yep.
I am here for 2 reasons. One is because my property value has gone up again, and I have frequently argued this. Sorry, I can tell I'm not being heard. And the other thing is at first, my property value went up 38%, way above, almost double what the 20% is. When I brought this up to the young man that I asked to walk through my home, he said, well, your property's been extremely undervalued. I would disagree with that because almost every year I have gone and requested that they look at my value again. Um, the reason I struggle with value, my home was built in 1890. My home is one of the oldest homes occupied in the city of Orinoco. My home, unfortunately, the basement has given in, for lack of a better way to put it. At one point, the previous owner did try to stabilize my property by putting in, by putting in approximately 2 feet of stabilizing wall, concrete, poured concrete. That did not do the trick. My home is still coming in. So a lot of the, I want to say the comparables that have been used have not been very accurate or very comparable to my property for those two primary reasons, its age and its condition. I keep getting told, well, if your property were selling, my property is not being maintained to be sold. I was very aware when I bought my property that my property would most likely, if lucky, survive my lifetime. I expect my property to be bulldozed, whether I live 5 years or whether I'm fortunate enough to live 30 years. I know that my property, because of its condition, will be bulldozed. I have, as you can see by this picture, even though I'm only on a very small half-acre lot, just a little over half an acre, the person that owns the property south and east of me is sitting on a fairly large, significant acreage there. I have been approached because of the commercial stuff that has been coming in um, with, would you sell it, and if so, at what price? And when I gave a price, which I thought was pretty minimal, they said, well, I have to bulldoze this property. Your property's not worth that because all you have is land value. What is the land value on less than an acre of land? And what's it going to cost the person to bulldoze my property? So I went through, because I'm fairly aware of several properties. One is in your picture. In the lower picture, if you look directly across and then straight north, there is a property that sold. It's considerably larger. It is at 510 Minnesota Avenue Southwest. For roughly 5 years, it's been on the slate to be bulldozed, and that property sold for $40,000. I have 3 other properties, one at 210 Minnesota Avenue Northeast, which is directly across from City Hall in the city of Orinoco. That property originally sold for $35,000. It wasn't until someone put in significant, over $100,000, in order to get a roughly $30,000 gain on his investment. That property took significant improvement, which is what mine would take. My windows are 40 years old. My siding has holes in it. My roof was just done, thank you, Lord. But the side buildings are both to the point where they will not survive the next 5 years. The other 2 properties that I have are comparables, are 140 First Avenue Northeast. That property, comparable as far as the square footage within the home, built roughly 1940. That property sold for $60,000. And then the last one that I have for comparable is 215 East Center Street. That's the highest one that I could find that was somewhat comparable, and that sold for $90,000. My property has been consistently overvalued, and I feel like even 20% seems pretty high for a property that is not going to be, it just isn't that value. There's no way I could sell my property for $140,000 given its condition. I've asked them to take pictures. The interior of my home, you can see where the basement is coming in. I actually have, my home is the old limestone and sand. There's several areas where the sand is coming into my basement. But you can also see as you go up the stairs and up into the upper portions, you can see where the walls are splitting and cracking and that sort of thing. So I knew when I bought the home I was desperate to get out of the place I was in. I bought my home knowing it had trouble, but I also figured I'd be able, it's my first and only home that I'll ever own. So
Good.
anyway, that's my story.
Now, is it accurate though that you bought this house 22 years ago for 125?
That is a deceitful number. It is
I'm
because
asking, that's why I don't.
what immediately happened is I gave 10,000 back to the homeowner, and the homeowner contributed 10,000, and that was to do roofing. Unfortunately, we made the mistake of buying CertainTeed shingles, which of course deteriorated. I was not one of the lucky ones that had that covered by the Certainty Insurance, which is why the two other buildings, I just recently, I think last year, year before, had the roofing done on the house to try to stop the water that was coming in. The water that's coming into the shed and the garage, I just don't have the money to do those buildings, so they will remain as they are, and as they come down, they come down.
Sure.
So, and also I was in a desperate situation to get out of the housing I was in. I was in low income housing at the time when I bought this in 2000. The place had become, for lack of a better word, it had become really deteriorated with drugs and crime. Um, and I had two teenage daughters, and I needed to get out fast. So I did. So, in all honesty, I way overpaid for the property just to get out. And I like the little house. I don't care how old it is. It doesn't have a lot of its original stuff, but I still like the little old house.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Any questions?
No, I don't have a question. I'm gonna make a motion that we leave it 141, 300.
All right. Julie, you want to address some of the issues before we, the comparables, or? Okay, before we act on it.
First, I'll say I'm not sure about the sales that she brought up. I did not find those. There are 5 or 6 sales in Orinoco that sold that we didn't use because they are not, I would agree, not comparable. There's not a whole lot in the city of Orinoco that is. There's one house that has sold in July of last year that is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 601 square feet, built in 1910, that just sold for $110,000. Otherwise, if you go to this next slide, Ryan. So because there's not any sales in the city of Orinoco, the only one, if you'll notice to the right, 115 4th Street, is really the only one that old, other than the one I just gave you, the 601 square foot one. So we went to some of the other small towns to see if we could find something within the same age range, that era. There's one in Pine Island that sold for 172. It's built in 1904. We've got one in the city of Byron. And if anybody's familiar with the city of Byron, that one sits by the old bank or behind the elevator. That one's built in 1900. The one on the right is Orinoco, has a lot of additions, not a perfect comp, but again, the closest we could find in the city of Orinoco. That one sold. And then if you go to the village of Viola, that one sold just recently for $169. City of Dover, we've got 159. So 1887 and 1910, same era. A little bit smaller houses. Bedroom, bathroom count a little less. Acreage a little smaller. And then we've got 2 in Stewartville that sold for $183,500 and $129,500. So we really just tried to look for that same vintage type house to find out what they were selling for in some of the other areas that would be of competitive nature to this particular property.
That's tough.
I mean, that's why I made my motion. I'm looking at these comps, and I mean, she's cheaper than any of these comps. Now, she's got issues with the basement and stuff. I understand that, but there's not. I'm not gonna change it, so I got my motion.
The outbuildings that she was talking about, we do recognize that they carry a little value, so we have very little value on the outbuildings.
Yeah, I noted that on the sheet that
Yeah.
you didn't give
Yep.
value to the outbuildings. All right, we have a motion and a second, and I tend to concur. I mean, 141 doesn't buy you much anymore in 2022. So, all right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up,
And our last
very
one.
good.
Morgan.
My name is Arthur Dale Mergen. I prefer Dale. And I'm at 13331 Sunset Bay Lane. That's where I live. I sold that house to my son, but I still live there. Okay, I purchased the property across the street, across the road. That's pretty close to what you got there in the purple.
Okay,
And I know this is the Board of Equalization, and I don't think I should pay, I don't mind paying my fair share, but if all the properties around me are a different value, why does mine stick out as way up high? Okay, I have some comparisons if you want them up on the screen. I don't know how you do that.
here we go.
Are they the ones that you and Ryan?
Are those the ones you gave me when I talked to you?
I don't know.
I got them up on the screen now. I think some of those might be the ones that you gave me.
Anyway, across, next door to me, the property adjacent is a larger property, and it runs at $6,375 an acre.
Where is that on this?
That property
Number 2.
would be directly east of this property,
So it's the number 2 on the list here?
Number 2 on the list, okay.
Yeah.
directly east. Okay, that would be the third one on the screen.
I
property
see
number
that,
2.
okay.
Number 2, yeah.
Okay. The property number 3 belongs to a Frutiger, and that one also has a value of $6,062 an acre. The JC Investments, which is up on Ryan's Bay Road, which is about a mile away, it has a value, and that's a 20 acre, the other one's an 8, a 10. They're not 1 acre lots and stuff.
Right.
That one is at $4,970 an acre. I don't know if you have that one. Okay. The daily lot, you have that one. I don't know which one that is.
Which one are we talking about now? 4 or 5?
Okay. I didn't have the chance to see this stuff before, but that's $4,980 an acre. Mine is set at $17,500 an acre. It's woodland, mostly woodland, one building site. The county says I can only have one house. The one adjacent to me, to the north of this property, is $17,500 an acre also. It's the same size, and the assessor says that it's an equal property. Well, I don't think so. It has 600 feet of lakeshore. I have none. So I think that's not fair. You know, if you got lakeshore, you've definitely got more value. And it's at that one's set at $175,000. I'm not going to argue whether that's worth $175 or not. I just think that to be equal, that these properties, if you go to raise mine, you have to raise everything. You can't just pick one and say you got to bear more of the tax burden. I think that the properties should be somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000 because that's what the others are
Yeah, I'm a little confused.
per acre.
I'm a little confused on the sales price. So you bought this property in November last year?
I did buy the property.
And what did you pay for it?
I don't remember exactly, but it was, I have to sell some back, so there's gonna be
I mean, the
some
sheet-
calculation going in there. It's gonna be almost
I think it says 400,000.
300,000.
It says 400 on the sheet. Is that inaccurate?
That could be, but because I'm gonna get money back on that sale because two properties are gonna take septic systems off of that property. Okay, so there will be a sale back to their properties.
So you bought it for 400, and then you're going to sell part of it to
That's
neighboring-
correct. So they can have approved septic systems.
But they're going to pay you for that, though.
They're gonna pay for that,
So
yeah.
you still paid 40,000 an acre then.
Yeah, I suppose. But you know, why do you buy a property? I mean, the value of that property, I couldn't sell it for $400,000 to save my soul. I bought it because it's across from my grandkids.
Well,
Yeah,
I get your
you don't
point.
think-
I want to hear. I mean,
Yeah.
I see that the property per acre
Yeah.
is varying kind of considerably on your comps. So I get what you're saying. Now I kind of want to hear, because we don't generally do that. I want to hear why we have different property values on there. That's I want Julie to tell me why these are different per acre.
So
You-
let Julie talk, and we come back.
Okay.
We
And then you can come
to
back
it.
up
Okay,
and.
I don't hear real well.
Yeah,
so-
no, I'm not cutting you off. I agree. I see that they're different
Yeah.
prices per acre,
Okay,
and I want her to tell me why.
okay.
And you'll get another chance if you
Yeah,
want.
well, yeah, okay.
So property number one, we have 175,000 on that 10 acres. Right now, that parcel is not buildable. As Mr. Morgan indicated, he is going to be selling a portion back, right? To make
Which one?
the first one here, property number one, the property just to the north of you. You're going to sell some land back to them to give them a driveway easement, right? Yeah. So once
Wendy,
you
when you
get,
turn around and talk to him and you speak, I have a hard time understanding anything you're saying.
no, thank
Your
you.
words are kind of blah, 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 and then when you turn around, I really can't tell you.
So parcel number one, that parcel currently is not buildable. There's no access to that roadway. And so Mr. Morgan was just talking about splitting two pieces off. One is for septic system for a house across the road. The other portion that he's selling is going to be the driveway easement to that parcel. So once that's done, that parcel will be buildable and will have a buildable value on it. But right now, that one's valued as not buildable.
The value that we're showing here is as a non-buildable lot.
Correct.
And once he sells the road
One on the
easement
north.
and
There'll
the
be an entitlement
septic,
to it.
then you will reappraise that
Correct.
property and the value will go up.
Correct.
The one in the north, they're talking.
The one you're selling the driveway to.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Josh is scheduled to look at all of Orinoco this year. And so all of the Orinoco land and buildings will be looked at.
So bottom line, Sheila, that property has no access.
I got that.
Despite having lake access, you can't build on it, you can't get to it.
Thank you.
So
Yep.
he's gonna sell a portion of his to the north to give him egress, right, and gain 100K out of that sale, which makes this buildable. Now with the frontage, that value is gonna
Go way up. Right.
way up.
You're going to make your neighbor pay a lot more taxes now. So
Yeah.
The bottom line is property one is their assessed value. Once you give them access or sell them that driveway access, that is going to be a lot higher next year.
They have access now. I mean, that's a little bit confusing.
Well-
Because that's got one property that has one building site, just like the lower half does. And the road comes up to the end, and we vacated the end of the road, and this gives them better access. They still have access. It just is, it's gonna be a lot better, and the driveway will be further from the lake.
What I'm hearing, I'm telling you what I'm hearing
Okay.
is Ms. Hackman is saying that right now, that lot, property number one, if nothing happens, that nobody can build anything on there. Is that correct?
The current roadway is owned partly by Mr. Morgan and then by the property owners on the other side. So it's not considered, I mean, it's not a public right of way. If they gave him an easement or allowed access through there, they potentially could get through there, which is why he's then splitting off the other piece to give them that owned access to that parcel. So right now, I don't believe that road goes straight up to that parcel to be
So-
built upon.
So let me, because I used to do this stuff on the township when I was on the township board. So you being a nice guy and your neighbor being a nice person, let the person that owns property number one get to their property. But if you wanted to be a mean person and your neighbor wanted to be a mean person, you could go, you can't, they got to cross your property. You're letting them go across your property to get to their property. You're gonna right now, and you know that's fine. That's great.
That's an untrue statement.
What she's saying is there is not but I got to go with that. There is not a legal driveway there. There might be a driveway there, but it ain't a recorded driveway. There's not a road to that driveway. There's a road that you let somebody use, but it ain't a public road. Well, we got a difference of opinion there, but that's what her records say. So be that as it may, so that's why it's low, but you're going to sell this person a chunk of land to give them access, to give them legal access to their land. Now, that makes it a buildable lot. So now that assessed value on that 10 acres is going to go high because it's a buildable lot. We considered it, Olmsted County considered it a non-buildable lot because according to our records, and our records could be wrong, but you know, we'd have to go through that. But just for the sake of argument, let's go with our records say that there's not a public road to that piece of property. You or whoever owned the land before you probably was a nice person and let them use the end of the public road to get to that property. I don't know. Doesn't really make any difference, but our records show that that was not a public road. You're going to sell them a chunk of land and they're going to have access to a public road. It's just it sounds stupid, but it is a big deal because I can give you when I was on the Kelmer Town Board, we had people that lived around Genoa and they got in a big row about it and they didn't have access. They were landlocked and they ended up having to pay a lot of money to get a little chunk of land so they could access their land. So the bottom line is on property one, I want to hear about the other properties, is you're going to sell them land. That's going to be a buildable lot in Olmsted County's eyes, and it's going to be worth a lot more money. And his assessed value is going to go up, 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 up next year. I don't know what percent. I mean, just so.
I have a question on property number 2.
Yep.
Did that little sliver get taken off for a sewer project?
Yeah, so property 2 and property number 3, we have valued as a non-buildable lot. We did, however, just within the last week, verify with planning, they are buildable lots. And so they need to have buildable values on them. So he's correct. Those currently do not have buildable values on them.
Do you know what the?
But they will.
Do you know
Yeah.
what the township paid to get the acres they needed for that septic?
What did the township pay? So the bottom parcel on the right-hand side, parcel number 2 that you were talking about, just south of that road.
Yep.
Zumbro Township from Wabasha County purchased that for their community septic system. And if I remember correctly, it was around $33,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's, I wanna say 40, so it was right around.
Okay. And the north side of that road, the city of Orinoco, or the Orinoco Township has that one, and that's for the right of way. And it's somewhere around 15, 17,000, just shy of 20,000.
And those
They
are
paid for that piece.
Those are less than 2 acres. Those
Yeah.
parcels. Because I remember when I was on the township board
Yeah.
that we were talking about purchasing it, and they thought their land was gold. You
For
know.
the realignment of that
Yeah.
road. Yep. So property 2 and property 3 are in fact buildable sites. We do not have them valued that way, so they will need to be changed as part of this revalue. He's correct on that. You go to the
But
next.
just on a buildable versus a non-buildable lot. I mean, is it double valuate? Just I know you can't give me a firm number, but is it double, triple? I got no idea.
It's hunting land or building land.
Well,
so
I was just gonna say, you can see the difference between, if it's rural vacant land, you're looking at for woods, you're either gonna do recreational land or just, set aside land. I would have to ask some of our rural vacant appraisers.
No?
Say number 1 is, if that's a buildable parcel, it's a 2-acre buildable parcel right there, sale number 1 right across the road.
Okay, so do you want to go back to the rest of his comps though, so we can address those for him? So, no, next slide. Property number 4, that one is near Zumbro Haven subdivision. We verified with planning on that one as well. That one is currently not buildable. It will be buildable, but they have to have a 33-foot access to a public right-of-way, which they do not have right
A
now.
cartway.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be a minimum of 33 feet and has to be access to a public right-of-way. They do not have that right now, so that parcel is just a wooded piece of parcel. It's, or wooded piece of land. It's not
So they,
as
now,
such.
tell me if I'm right on this, because back, again, we had a lot of wood lots that were landlocked out in
Yeah.
Calmer Township, because you used to get 10 acres when you got your 160 from the government. So the people, if that property 4 wants to, somebody's got to give him access,
Correct.
but he's got to buy it. So that's where the rub comes. So generally, where that bulb is, that end of the lot, probably one of those 2 properties, he'd have to get an access from them, but he's going to have to buy the access off the public right away.
Yeah, and if you look on the right-hand side of that bulb, there where those 2 parcels come together, there very well may be a small sliver there that goes to the outlots for Zumbro Haven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So he'll need to have, that owner will need to have at least a 33-foot access to public right-of-way to make that parcel buildable. And the parcel number 5, that parcel is actually non-buildable as it sits, and that will not be. I think the house next door, if it doesn't meet a lot of record, then planning looks at those 2 parcels as one. So that parcel is not buildable and will not be buildable unless something changes.
So you're saying the one north of that one, they're really tied to where the house is in the middle there? That's considered one lot?
Well, they look, if they have to look at certain number of
Density?
parcels, density per quarter or per 35 and 5. So if it meets that parcel is a lot, but they won't let them build on it because there's already too many houses.
Why would
in
they
that
allow a
section.
split then like that?
I don't know. We've got quite a few of them that have been out there for a long time. Yep. So can you go to the next slide? So we pulled a couple of comps, so this might help in just number of acreage. We just went through Orinoco Township and tried pulling. So sale number 1 is actually right across the street. So you'll see the small 2-acre blue lot. That one just sold for $120,000 last fall. Mr. Merkins is just on the south side. Well, actually, this is backwards, so it would be on the north side, but it's just on the other side of the road. So that one just sold for $120 for those 2 acres. You've got a parcel on 75th Street. If anybody knows where the old Bandel site is, just east of Highway 52 on 75th Street. That one sold for $200,000. It does have a cartway path to it. There's a pending sale that's just right along 75th Street for $225,000. That's number 3. That's a 5-acre piece. And then you've got a couple parcels over by Fitzpatrick subdivision in River Ridge. Those are subdivision parcels, around 2 acres. They're selling for $275,000. And then if you go to the next, I think there's a couple more on the next slide. You've got another one, and I believe that one is just north of Genoa. Genoa. Number 5. That 5-acre chunk sold for $199,000. Almost a year and a half ago. And then you've got a couple additional ones, 2 acres.
Developments aren't really good comparables.
Yeah.
I guess I have a hard time with if you buy something for approximately $400,000, it's hard to make an argument it's not worth $175,000. You know what I mean, Dale?
Well, I thought this is the Board of Equalization, everybody should kind of pay the same.
No, I know, but I mean, so you set the new market, so now you're going to be what the others are going to be judged by now.
Well, it makes a difference what I'm gonna pay to build a house there.
No, but I mean, you essentially said now your property out there is worth $40,000 an acre.
Because it's woodland and hunting grounds.
Well,
And I don't know how the county is, the road dead ended at the other property.
as a township road, maybe it's not recorded properly or something.
You disagree,
It's
I don't know whether, but
I mean, it's immaterial. We thought Olmsted County thought that that road was short, wherever the official road was short of that other guy's property. So we considered that lot unbuildable. So, you know, if you weren't gonna sell this guy a driveway access, then, you know, that guy might be able to go back in some records and find that he did button up, you know, he's touching a public road right away. But now that you're going to sell him an access, you know, why go through the exercise? You might be right. I mean, you might be right, but you're going to sell him a different access, so it's kind of immaterial at this point. He's going to end up having his property value is going to go up considerably.
That road was.
He'll be here next year. I mean, that's
A distinct possibility.
Yeah, that road had a realignment to it, to the north side there. And when that alignment happened, when it went through the property, the split of the road actually went to the ownership of the two property owners on the either side of it. The township doesn't own that road. It's in the name of the property owners. And so it even falls back further than just shy of that parcel. It falls back further to where that road realignment was.
Do you think the township did that maybe for a septic system or something like that? So when it encroached in a right of
It's
way?
various reasons. We had, you know,
Can I explain
Go ahead.
that?
Yeah.
That road thing?
Yeah.
So everybody understands it?
Yeah.
I'm the one that promoted to have the road, vacated on the end, okay? It's all one deal. The road went right to the north property. You could drive right off the end of the road into that north property. We vacated the road at the end, and we agreed to sell the other easement to that road, and to give the other guy that wants to improve his property a shed and a drain field. Now, that's all part of one deal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not even completed. So why would the 22 taxes be based on something that's not completed? I've signed a purchase agreement to sell that property to him, but it's not recorded or done.
well, back to what Mark said, you bought your property for $400,000. So I
Sure.
mean, it's hard to argue that it's worth not that. And the other guys, we thought was unbuildable. And you're saying it was buildable. Well, maybe we should have had his higher. But we're not here to argue about the other guys. We're here to argue about yours. And
Yeah.
you haven't really given us a real good reason to say, because you bought it for $400,000. And
I did
they
give
had
you
a
a good
gun to
reason.
your head.
I bought it because it's across the road.
Well, no, there's legitimate.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I buy property. It's
There's no way I would have bought that down the road a half a mile.
I'm not arguing that.
Yeah.
Are you saying that road is not vacated though? Because I thought you said
That's
that
not what?
vacated. The vacation of that road's already taken place, right? That's been
No,
recorded.
it's part of the next deal.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I think the vacation's already been recorded. The part of the next deal is the new access.
Well, the road got vacated
Yep.
and recorded. The other part is in the recording process.
Right. So
So
I think
it's all
Julie's
happening.
right that it doesn't touch a road right now because
Yeah.
that road's been vacated.
And it was when they bought the property, it was one billable lot according to the county.
I'm not, I mean, I know everybody hates my
So
guts
I
now,
can't
but-
say it's not a billable lot.
Well, it's going to be a
But
billable
I
lot.
didn't want to argue about that particular. I just thought that my property should be the same value per acre as the neighboring properties.
But the problem is,
That's not.
you set the value when you
I
pay the
set the value
price.
for all the others.
No,
Or
that
for
value
comparables.
now goes into the comparables and the sales analysis and assessment for next year. This is now part of a purchase of a 10-acre plot at 40K per acre. Okay, that's what will go into the sales analysis for next year, which will then impact other potentially.
Okay, potentially that would be fine, but theirs is not going up in 22. Mine is.
Doesn't go up to 23. I bet though.
20.
Yeah, they'll go up.
But then put mine up in 23.
We're always a year behind.
Yeah, we're
I think we're not getting
Year-
there.
The year prior is what goes into the sales and the market value analysis for the coming year. So this purchase, right, is now going to roll in further. Else. So that's what sets the value. Is we're driven by the law, as Jim said,
This is fun.
and we go by sales. Sales drive the market valuation price. So this sale will bias the per acre price for a number of other properties. How much they go up, we don't know, right? Until the analysis is done and the assessment is done. But fact remains is that price you paid is going to impact, is going to set a floor for the per acre price. So you set for
Comparable is-
anybody else that is selling or buying, exactly, or paying taxes on it.
So let me try it this way, Ken. So somebody's gonna come in next year. Joel Smith is gonna come in next year, and Julie's gonna and he's gonna not want to pay the same thing. He'll have kind of the same argument, and she's gonna pull up a comp sale, and it's gonna be your sale. I mean, assuming it's the same type of land, and we're gonna say, Mr. Mergen bought this land last year for $400,000, so that's a comparable sale. That's how the system works. I mean, I don't know. It ain't probably fair in your mind, but that's the way it is.
I mean, I think when we started this whole thing tonight, we showed that our staff does an accurate job. They do a good job. They're in the very good range and they're in their appraisals as compared to sales. So I mean, we're not off market. The market is what it is. You probably could have bought that property 20 years ago for $4,000 an acre.
Well, I just want everybody to be equal.
Well, this is a good argument, good discussion.
It's a good discussion.
All right, so we need a motion.
I have so moved. Keep it at current valuation.
Can I get a second? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. All right, so do we have the other ones that we,
You do them all at once, or you gotta do them one by one?
There's at least one at the end that you guys haven't seen that you
Okay.
don't know
Oh,
that we have to
okay.
probably do it. I'll go quick. So these are assessor requests. These are parcels.
Julie.
I can't listen that fast.
I'm sorry. These parcels.
Speak like you're speaking to me.
Okay.
No, don't use any profanity.
I don't when I talk to him.
You've had enough of that.
He said to
today.
him, not like him. Right? The following parcels are parcels that the owners either went to township boards and they were unable to make a vote and make a call because they had a relative on the board, so they didn't have a quorum. There were also a couple parcels in here that came from open books, which means the local jurisdiction didn't have a local board, and so they had to come to county board. And then we probably had a couple that went to the local board. We needed to do a review on it, and so they said they were going to make no change, and that if any type of change needed to be made, we would come to the county board to have it fixed. So the first one, they did attend the Dover Township Board, and after review of the parcel, when we got back, we actually changed 4.1 tillable acres. We changed from tillable to non-tillable lands, so it changed the value slightly. So our original value is 557, and the revised value is 544.1.
should we,
So moved.
Can we go through
Second.
all of them, or do you want to do it one at a
One
time?
we got a motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, you got that one.
Okay. Next parcel.
This isn't beautiful.
This gentleman has a relative on the Dover Township Board, so they were unable to make vote on this parcel. He recently purchased it. It is in some dire condition. We did a review on the property and found some comparable sales. Like I say, he just purchased it and had an appraisal with it. That was quite a bit lower, but it was from a relative. And so the value was $358,400. Based on that review, we'd like to lower the value to $290,000.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
This particular parcel is in northeast Rochester. City of Rochester does not have a local board, so we're bringing it to the county board. This
They're spending
taxpayer.
all their money on a.
This taxpayer had some water damage in the kitchen laundry area, and so we reduced the value by the cost to cure. She gave us an estimate of what it would cost to fix it. And so the original value at 479.7 was reduced to 463.3.
Say, before we vote on this, do we automatically push it back next year? So,
No, and we're assuming they'll have a permit, but we'll review. We'll go back out and look at it next year.
In
We
1
won't,
year,
we
okay.
won't originally, just take it away. No,
Okay.
we'll review the property.
okay.
So
Yep.
this is a temporary reduction in value because of
Water damage.
damage.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, so it is for the cost to cure of it. She gave us an estimate. So it's gonna take to bring it back to the condition that it was. So when we get that, we'll either get a permit or we'll do just a call back on it and we'll go revisit that parcel during the next assessment to make sure that it's been finished.
And the reason the city of Rochester doesn't do this on their own is they don't have the appropriate staff.
The Board of Equalization, so last year they had one member of their board that was trained, and that member is no longer with the city of Rochester, and so they didn't have a trained member in time, which means they lost their ability to have that board for last year and for this year. They can regain the board next year if they so choose. I haven't heard anything from
So
them.
it is a choice of the city of whether or not they
Going
do this?
forward. For last year and for this year, they are by statute, they cannot have it. They lost it for 2 years, but going forward, starting next year, yes, it'll be by choice whether they have it or not.
They
They
don't
have
want
to
it.
get,
Stephanie has a question down here. She'd like to know if we can charge them $95,000 to do this service.
I'll let Lisa take care of that billing.
Sheila, if
Brilliant, that's brilliant.
they take the class and get certified,
Just trying to help.
they have to be present for the Board of Adjustment, but then they can hold a Board of Adjustment.
Actually trying to make a point about the city's responsibility
Correct.
to make sure that they have people trained so that the workload doesn't go on to the county. That is actually
Right.
the point
We
I'm trying
should
to make
charge
a little more
for
subtly.
our time.
We're catching it. I think
We gave them notification that they did not have a trained member and they,
they didn't care.
They didn't care.
They don't want to do
Oh.
this. This is not fun. So,
It's not fun.
so in order to regain their board for next year, they'll have to have a trained member. And then they'll have to send me a resolution stating their desire to regain their board.
So they have, but my point is it's an option. This becomes another thing that the county has to do if a municipality chooses not to fulfill that
We
responsibility.
are the court of
correct.
last resort.
although isn't it true that if we do a really poor job, the state does it for us?
Not exactly.
If you-
Really is
If,
degenerating.
if our office does really good for us, if the county board doesn't have a trained member, then it goes directly to the state and the county's charged $500 a parcel as a penalty. If you do
Well-
the board,
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
You see?
ding, ding, ding.
So, thank you for all being trained.
so who's trained up?
Get a bill ready.
Everybody's trained
Get an
except
invoice
for
ready.
Matt.
What is their motivation? What is their motivation then to get back into that business?
I've had a bad
Have
effect
none.
on you people.
Okay, we better get back to work. We have something for, I need a motion on this.
Move to approve.
Okay,
this
can I get a
reduction.
second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes.
This parcel is similar to the first one, and we did an adjustment of 1.82 tillable acres. We changed to non-tillable lands, and it changed the value slightly from 636.7 to 628.5.
So moved.
I have a question. What did this property owner expect? What was his request? I mean, that seems like such a modest change.
Yeah, he just wanted us to look at the number of tillable acres that we had on record.
Back to what you're finding.
No,
Okay.
no.
All right, we got a motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Move to adjourn.
On the, I mean, so what do you go down, $8,000?
Yeah, which
And
is
then
about the
it-
value of an acre and a half.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so that's the value of an acre, and what do we tax it at? 0.5% or 1%?
If it's homestead, it's 0.5%.
Yeah, 0.5%.
if it's within-
So 0.5%
yeah.
of $8,000.
Well, that's why I wondered if the property owner was satisfied.
$40.
He was. I mean, if it would have matched the stuff from his FSA schedule or his farm schedule. So yes, he was satisfied that it matched. Yep.
Well, let me add to that. You know, besides FSA, it's also bank loaning capacity and
Yeah.
sometimes,
They get a little funny.
well, they use these numbers for their financial.
No.
Or loan to
I'm not
value.
saying it is. It could be a
Yeah.
loan.
Loan to value kind of, that goes into their calculation
Yeah,
of
yeah.
loan to value.
And their valuations and their
Yeah, sure.
work. So it's not only
Yeah, they don't ignore these numbers.
Are you saying when he goes to sell it, he's gonna sell it at 79.4 acres, or is he gonna sell it at 8
Well, I don't know the situation, but it's I'll say our office does work for other people. Obviously, we know in real estate,
Yeah.
banking institutions, you cover a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
And basically your government, so that they take their word for it, which is great. But that's what we do for other people, and yet we don't charge, obviously. So that's
Yeah, and lands change. So sometimes pastures moved into tillable, tillables moved into pasture. So it's always kind of a chasing game as you were doing a revalue. So yeah. Maureen Bacon, this particular taxpayer called in with concerns on her parcel. Her value had risen quite drastically. We started at 567.6. This is a house that really doesn't fit the neighborhood and the houses that surround it. It's quite a bit larger. It actually has a 1,500 square foot garage, so 5 car, which is quite unlike most of the other properties around it. And so just size-wise, we had to make some adjustments on it just to make it comparable with some of the things in the neighborhood. So we reduced the value to 529.9. She was happy with that, so we're requesting that the value be affirmed at that value.
Move to approve.
second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Two left. Ben Gadsky purchased a property in New Haven Township. This particular parcel was reviewed by one of our staff. Originally, it was 1,107,500. He actually just purchased this property in December for 900 and let me write it down. $945,000. Has some pretty significant. This is the old Cadillac property.
Is it Hinderman for that?
Yes.
Oh, it's Hinderman's?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually it's.
Go in that house?
That's that property.
I haven't been in the house, but it sounds like it's in
We went
dire.
by there.
It's
It
in
was
dire disrepair. Yeah, they had a fire that they tried to fix, and there's still remnants of that. There's some other things that are wrong with the property. So
You may remember Mr. Hinderman, he was going to,
It's for
No? Well, that too.
the right of way over by the pit for 55th Street extension.
Motion to approve.
So second.
so
We have motion
957.
we have motion second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the last property is the property that Commissioner Wright brought us a letter for. That was for the City of Rochester Board of Equalization. Dr. Wood has a property in Parkwood Hills, which is just right up at the top of the hill on Viola Road, right before you get to the church and fire station. We looked for some sales in that area, in the Parkwood Hills area. We found 3 or 4 sales. The highest sale was $450. Our value is $480,100. And so we are reducing that value to $441,400 with your approval.
so moved.
One question, is that a
Yes.
flag in the yard?
Is there a what?
Flag.
Is that a flag that says elect Greg Wright?
Well, let's
Looks like, can you read it?
Tread on me.
pull that back.
That's the same thing, isn't it?
Oh, okay, I just want to clarify.
I just passed the letter on. I didn't.
All right, we have a motion, a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
I wish those people that we raised that we didn't give them relief, if they would have stuck around for this, because it shows that you do move downwards, but they don't want to stick around to hear that part of it.
Yeah.
They have a cause too, so.
Yeah, we should probably have done that first.
This portion?
Yeah, so that we're not heartless and.
Nah.
They don't care.
Then
They,
they'd be even more mad that you didn't
Well, I
reduce
mean,
it.
so that if it makes sense, if you can make a good argument.
That's a good
Don't
one.
hurt to make an argument that's not worth 175, but it just.
Mr. Mergen did not help his case. I was kind of thinking, man, it might be a little
So,
high. The more he talked, the less I got convinced.
I actually have his survey on the desk over here. We just found it today. With the realignment, it is owned by private parties, and they vacated a street that the township didn't even own. So they paid money to vacate the end of the street, and it was privately owned. The township didn't own it, so they didn't even need to go through that route. So anyway,
Okay,
I think that's it.
all right, do we need a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. It was nice to have full board for this. It's kind of fun.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of this human services stuff, but being on a town board,
Oh.
and we had fights. I mean, big fights over